introduce ourselves. So I'll start it off. I'm Sean Bolerjack, East Ward Alderman and Capital Improvement Committee Chairman.
And Chairman of the Board as well. I'm Greg Weimer. Mayor Greg Parker.
I'm Catherine Dent, I'm the West Ward Alderman.
Sean Wayland, West Ward Alderman.
Joe Chase, Chief of Police.
Annie Deckard.
Danita Williams.
Lauren Prue.
Steve Payne, Public Works Director.
Stacy Houston, Finance Director.
Sally Burbridge, City Administrator.
Thank you for everyone coming this evening. This will be kind of an early look at our capital improvement projects being proposed for the next fiscal year. And I expect this to be a lengthy meeting, so we're gonna hold the questions and comments just for the board and the committee itself here. For the members of the public that's here tonight, thank you for coming to observe what's being proposed this year. If you do have any questions or comments, I would ask that you reach out to us, individual alderman or mayor. I can be reached by email at sbolerjack@salemno.com. And you're welcome to participate in the public comment section of our regular alderman meeting as well. So the first thing we have on our agenda is the introduction to city budgets. And I've asked Sally to kind of, since we do have some new faces here, just to briefly go over each of the city funds and kind of what the purpose is and explain how some are restricted for certain purposes and all that good stuff. So I'll hand it over to Sally.
All right, so first of all, thank you, those of you who are new to the committee, thank you for being willing to serve and being here with us tonight. So this is a quick, I've gone through several variations of this slide, this basic slide recently, in the last couple of years. This one I put together just for tonight, okay? So, when we talk about city budgeting, there's a lot of kind of misperceptions out in the public about how funds can be used, what they can be used for. Capital improvements that we're talking about for this committee, and we'll go into detail about what capital improvements are here in just a bit, but so that you understand the funds. So mainly, the funds that we'll be dealing with for capital improvements are gonna be these over here that have this extended tab on the side, and that's on your printout also, okay? So all those that have that extended tab. Now, those that are in the red or the pink, and there is that legend at the bottom of your sheet also, those are restricted funds. So those can only be used for whatever that purpose is. So perfect example, the first one on here that we'll be dealing with, the Special Street Fund 201. So that is funded by a sales tax that the state collects on gasoline. And so it can only be used for streets projects, okay? We can't transfer money out to any other account, to any other fund to do other things with it. It has to be used for streets. Okay, so these that are red or pink, these are restricted and can only be used for the things as they're labeled. Okay. Parks and Recreation, that's another one that we'll be talking about some tonight. Again, same thing, we can't pull funds from there and use for other things. It has to be for Parks and Recreation in the city. Again, special tax funded. You'll see down here also in these other colors, the yellow, these are our electric funds. Okay, tonight we'll be talking some about 502, which is the electric DNR fund. So DNR stands for depreciation and replacement. Okay, so repair and replacement of equipment. It can be facilities, anything that has an expected lifespan that we know we'll have to replace at the end. All right, and then the blue, these are our water funds. And same thing, 511 here is the DNR, depreciation and replacement fund. So we'll talk some about that this evening. Next, moving down, the sewer DNR fund. Same thing, we'll be talking about it. And then another one we'll be talking about will be the airport fund, 560. And again, funds that are in there can only be used for the airport, okay? So you'll see there are a lot of other funds going on, especially down at the bottom of the page. You'll see there's a cemetery endowment fund, second from the bottom. And folks a lot of times will see that and they'll say, oh, well, the city has all kinds of cash in these funds, but we can't use them for other things. And so I think that's important to know right off the bat, okay? When you think about, oh, well, they have a fund balance of X amount, you'll see here 10.1 million, but the majority of that is restricted in how we can use it, okay? So I feel like that's a good, framework to start the discussion and kind of keep in mind, as we forward. Is there anything else you want me to add to that? That's a really quick going over of it, so.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions about that? All right.
Move on.
Yep, so we'll move on, to the proposed, fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement projects.
So you all should have, I have printed out the packets for you, you can take those home with you, study them. If you have questions later, come back. This next page, or next set of pages, this is kind of the narrative piece that goes with the capital improvement plan. And it explains a little bit about what capital improvements are, okay? So first of all, let me start by telling you that this is just the second year for the city to do a capital improvement plan like this, okay? It is otherwise known as a 5-year plan. So how are we going to fund the things that we need, whether it's projects or equipment, whatever that is, for the next 5 years for the city? So as we put that together, down in here, you'll see that it's developed around 2 primary goals. Number 1, to ensure the appropriate maintenance of existing infrastructure and facilities. And number 2, to plan effectively for future needs given current resources. So, and it says current resources because we don't know what might pop up tomorrow or next year or on year 4 of the 5-year plan. So we do the best we can with what we know about today, and then we relook at this every year and see what's changed in our world, and then update it accordingly. So this next one, scope and categories. So the capital investments in the CIP involve major city assets that typically have long, useful lives of at least 5 years and values of at least 10,000. Okay? So those are the types of things we're looking at on this list of projects and equipment. They generally fall into one of 5 categories. Number 1 is the acquisition of land and or buildings, so for public purposes. Number 2 is construction of significant facilities, so that can be buildings, roads, additions or extensions to existing facilities. Number 3 is rehabilitation or major repairs, so infrequent, non-reoccurring maintenance on facilities. Think a roof replacement, not something you do every year, even every 5 years. That is a CIP type of project. Number 4, annual street maintenance program, so replacement or repair of concrete or asphalt pavement streets. And number 5, vehicles, equipment, furniture, and fixtures, so essential assets for city operations. So those are the types of things that you'll see in the CIP. It will be mostly made up of those things. So generally when we're talking about funding, I already kind of mentioned this with the first slide about which funds we'll be talking about this evening. Special Streets Tax Fund, Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund, the Park Improvement Sales Tax Fund, the Electric, Water and Wastewater Depreciation and Replacement Funds, the Airport Fund, and the other one on this list right now that's a little separate is the Federal Home Loan Bank funds for the Welcome Home program, and that is a grant-funded program. This will be the last year for that program. Okay. So as we get into this, the current CIP for next 5 years, beginning with the upcoming budget year, total expenditures for 5 years is $24,700,000. That is up significantly from last year's numbers. Again, last year was the first year we'd done this. We knew it wasn't going to be fully fleshed out as staff learns how to use this tool. And it really is meant to be a planning tool that becomes part of the whole budget. Okay, it's not a separate budget by itself, it's part of the whole budget. So the upcoming budget year, and again, understand this is a draft plan right now that you guys are seeing, but it introduces you to it. You can start asking questions and we can fine tune as we go. The draft plan for the upcoming year, that total is $7.4 million for the CIP. And again, last year I think it was only just over 4 million. So again, as part of it is a lot of those grant-funded projects have rolled over. They didn't get completed last year. And then part of it is as we flesh out the full CIP. Okay. Yeah, and then one of the main purposes of doing a CIP is long-range planning, making sure we're looking toward the future, that we're planning for how do we take care of, replace, maintain the things things that are vital for city functions and operations as we provide for our community. I am going over all this fairly quickly, so if you guys have questions, stop me, okay? And same thing, committee members, board members that are new to this, if you guys have questions later on, let me know, just reach out, okay? All right, are we ready to jump into the? Okay. All right, so the CIP itself, this first slide is a summary slide. Give me a second here. Okay. Alright. Apologies, guys, this is not a laptop or computer I use every day, just once or twice a week here lately. Well, that's a little better. That's another reason I provided everyone with handouts. So, again, this is meant to be a summary. You'll see capital improvement revenues. Understand these numbers are not final yet. We do still have utility committee meetings and airport board meetings coming up soon. So these are not final. You'll see our revenues total. We've got it by fund and by total, 7.7 million for the upcoming budget year. CIP expenditures, 7.4 million for the upcoming budget year. So that's a good first look. And then you can see the following years after that, where those lay. So again, a good reference, quick place to look and see the big picture. Okay. The next, I think there are 4 pages in your printed packet, that all kind of run together. This is what I call the capital improvement plan itself, this spreadsheet. So this lists out by fund, okay, in order by fund. So you see we start with Fund 201, Special Streets Fund, okay? And so we list out the projects or equipment purchases that are requested and that we're looking at this point. So for special streets, and then you'll have the department that's requesting it here. So we start with pre-existing leases and debt that get paid for out of this fund, okay? You'll notice after these first 4 pages, this is a lot of information and a lot of detail, okay? So you'll notice after these first 4 pages of that continuing spreadsheet, there are project sheets for every individual item listed in here, with the details and the explanation of what it is, why it's needed, and then the costs and the breakdowns. Everybody following me so far? So you can look back and refer from that master spreadsheet here to every one of these projects as its own project sheet with details. Okay. So you'll see here pre-existing leases and debt, 15,000. We're actually paying off one of those in the upcoming budget year, and then that's why it drops down to 8520 the next year for the next 2 years. Okay. Street repaving, that's been kind of a standard, 120,000. And so for this year, that's the request for hot mix to repave a section of streets in town. Okay. The loader, so this is a lease that we will actually complete this year. We'll buy it out this coming budget year. So half of it is in here in special streets. Half of it you'll see later on in this spreadsheet under capital improvements. Okay. All right, and then the skid steer. So you'll notice the skid steer is not out here till year 3. So this is where we start getting into that 5-year plan. Okay. The replacement of a skid steer in year 3. We will be focused mainly tonight on what's gonna happen in the upcoming budget year. Okay. And those are the printouts that are in your packet tonight, are the ones for this coming budget year. The others are available in the agenda packet online. Okay. Any questions so far? I realize it's a lot. keep going. Forgive me, cause I detest when we just go line by line through a spreadsheet. I'm not sure how else do we talk about this. And so that's why I wanna, if you guys have questions, let me know. Is there a way you would prefer to see it?
I have a question.
I was gonna say, yeah, you and Sean have been through this before.
Okay, so I was looking at the pool liner replacement,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And I guess that we still haven't heard back from the insurance. I know that we had like a $50,000 deductible, right? And the insurance for the one quote that we got for the pool liner was $140.
Right, but we've not opened bids yet,
Okay,
so we're still accepting bids for that.
okay.
So yeah, so this
So you
one
just
will be
budget.
covered, so, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it will be paid for still out of a Parks and Rec line item in the budget,
Mhm.
even though we should have that insurance money to reimburse,
Okay.
okay?
I think my question is, do we just typically over budget for that, just to be on the safe
Well,
side?
the first quote was, yeah, 140-some thousand,
Yeah.
and as far as I know, that's just the pool liner, that's not the extra PVC fencing around the deck and those kinds of things.
That doesn't come for free, I mean.
That'd be nice.
Alright.
And the other thing on that, the other thing that we have learned is that 50,000 deductible is for everything that we find that's hail damage in the city. So we do have an insurance inspector coming looking
Okay.
at some other facilities. Okay, let's see. So leases and debt, this one for the pool is COP. There's nothing else in there, I'm trying to remember this, just COP.
Just
So COP is certificates of participation. It's basically a bond, and that's how the new pool was paid for when they redid the pool in 17. And so that's our payments, paying that back. Okay. Pool filter media, so this is replacement, and again, all the details are in those specific project sheets. Replacement of the filter media, so right now we have sand as our filter medium. And it has a specific lifespan. And so Melissa's recommending that we change to a glass bead filter that has a much longer lifespan. You don't have to change it out as often. And then some updates to the Al Brown concession building, trying to get actual concession sales going back at Al Brown ball fields. Roof replacement at the city park concession and restrooms. Bleacher replacement at Al Brown, and then replacement of some lighting at the pool.
I would just comment on this fund as well, that we see the 210 Park Improvement Fund. So the park board, they've already met once to review the proposed budget, and they'll meet again to review it again and make a vote to recommend to the Board of Aldermen on their portion of the
Actually,
budget.
they've already voted to recommend.
That's right, yeah, that's right. And so they have reviewed this and made some recommendations at that meeting as well. So you'll see that for some other funds as well, with like electric and water. The utility committee will review that portion of the budget as well.
Right, airport board happens
Mhm.
Monday, so yeah, different boards also have input. It's not just you guys, but you guys kind of have the final recommendation for the capital improvements. Alright, so then you'll see here, like for the special street fund, this is the total for this year. Okay, for Parks and Rec, there's the total for this year as proposed. Then moving on, so the capital improvement fund, so, hold on, let me back up. I talked about the special street tax, it being a tax on gasoline sales, that, or actually, is it gasoline sales, is it fees on licensed vehicles? It's both, okay, alright. The park improvement fund is funded, it's a 3/8 cents sales tax that was voted on by the public specifically to fund the upgrades to the pool and ongoing for Parks and Rec. The capital improvement fund is a half-cent tax. Again, a sales tax voted on by the public to fund projects and capital improvements in the city. So, again, we have pre-existing leases and debt. This is mainly vehicles and equipment. I can pull it up if we wanna go find that.
Yeah, like all the HVAC upgrades stuff.
ESP, right, upgrades and improvements. Let's see if I can, here it is, capital improvements, leases and debt. So here's the detail on this one. So here, yeah, ESP financing ends in 2036 for energy efficiency upgrades at the admin building, Old City Hall, Police Department, Parks Shop, and Salem Community Center. There's also a skid steer lease. You'll see each of these is broken down separately down here. A skid steer lease ends in fiscal year 27, it's split with special streets. City Hall and admin building lighting project ends in 2031, and it includes the admin building, Old City Hall, Police Department, and Salem Community Center.
I have a question. What's ESP stand for?
Energy
Saving for,
Energy Solutions,
professionals, I think.
Yeah.
It's the name of the company who did it,
Okay.
yes.
I have a question on that page too.
Uh-huh.
Why does the furnace really need to be replaced?
On which page?
46,924 down to the very bottom. Financial year 25, fiscal year 25. Right there, HVAC, admin and city hall, third one down, there you go.
So it was already done.
It was already done?
Yeah, so this is us paying back the financing on these
Okay.
things.
that's the,
And part of that program is, the savings from doing the upgrades on the utilities portion of it, that
We're
would pay
supposed to
back
help pay back.
the loan.
Yeah, the whole project, everything that says ESP on it, that was part of a energy efficiency program.
So what was done at the community center?
We did some HVAC, I'm trying to remember what
Roof,
else,
new roof was installed.
a new roof,
Mhm.
okay, I wasn't aware of that. So.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? Alright, back to the, kind of the master capital improvement plan. So that was the pre-existing leases and debt, and then we go non-departmental. So non-departmental, most of the time I've seen this in other places called administration, so things that don't belong to a specific department, okay? So, Old City Hall building improvements, so this number is dramatically larger than last year. I went and used a estimating program that I used for the Welcome Home, rehab program to do some estimates, knowing the repairs that need to be done, especially on the council chambers and things like that in the building. So this gave us a ballpark for that. Again, I overinflated a little bit because this is not quotes or bids from local companies to do it. So, same thing, so this is the council chambers itself is the 50,000. The other would be the stage, and then some of the other sealing up the building, the work that I had on the CIP last year that we didn't get done.
And that's from the line burst that happened earlier this year.
Well, the
water leak that caused a lot of damage.
Well, the council
Most of them.
chambers, yes.
Yeah.
And then the stage floor, yes.
Mhm.
This like stage floor portion of this,
Mhm.
yes, but not the other pieces.
And then we're still working with insurance on
Yes.
that.
Yes. So IT and cybersecurity, for, I'm drawing a blank. I have to look at the tab. So, as the board members know, we've been working with, Brian Craig for our IT needs. And we have, also worked he works in conjunction with, the Missouri Center for Cybersecurity Excellence out of Springfield, a nonprofit. This past year, we did upgrade our antivirus software, citywide. And then, I'm trying to remember what, that is for the servers. So, for the upcoming budget year, we do need to go ahead and do an upgrade to our servers that are there in the admin building, and so that's the 15,000. The cost of the 2 servers, plus licensing and all of that go with it to upgrade those, so that's what that is. Then we plugged, you'll see moving forward, just plugged a number in, because we know we will need to do upgrades in various things every year as we move on. This is one of those items that in the past we've not had broken out separately in the budget. It's been part of, it's either been in office supplies or general expenditures, and so this is kind of some of that detail. Dangerous structure remediation, this was a new one we put in last year, we have not gotten, used it yet this year. This is for if we have, buildings in the community that meet the qualifications of our dangerous buildings ordinance, and that need to be condemned and then demolished. And so that's what this line item is for. Okay. So within capital improvements, even though that tax is for projects, there is one crew who gets a portion of their wages their wages come out of this because they are our sidewalk crew, sidewalk and construction, okay? And so some of their benefits are split and come out of general fund, but their main core wages come out of capital improvements, because they are working on projects, they've done work at the animal shelter, they're doing work at the airport pilots lounge, they do concrete, driveway approaches, sidewalks, curb and gutter, kind of everything but the kitchen sink, flagpoles, yes, that too. So these three lines here, those are related to their salaries, their wages. Then moving down below that, then we've got actual sidewalk construction, so this is just for, a piece of sidewalk gets torn out, it needs to be replaced. They see that they're buckling somewhere and they need to replace them, this is kind of for the random, just general replacement. This next line item, this is something new. Where to begin? So this intersection of Roosevelt and Main Street, or Highway 19, is identified in the active transportation plan that the city approved 2 years
December
ago?
22.
Yeah, 2 years ago. It is not the top rated one in the plan, but we've bumped it up because in conversations with MoDOT, this intersection is on their radar for needing some upgrades as well. And if we can get sidewalk to both sides of that intersection along Roosevelt, where kids are walking to school regularly, then because we have sidewalk to both sides of the intersection, MoDOT will pull some of their funding and do a crosswalk. So that's why this one got bumped up, so that we can maybe pull down, we get our work done and then work with MoDOT to get a crosswalk installed.
That section of West Roosevelt there is very narrow, so
It is.
so I think having a sidewalk through there would be very helpful, especially for the safety of the kids.
Right. And this cost is looking at from Maine all the way to MacArthur or HH.
Stopped and had a conversation with the guys that work at Current River Kitchen yesterday, and they said it's not uncommon to hear 3 near accidents in that intersection, because people pop over that hill doing 35 to 50, and it needs attention.
Yeah, and that line of sight, they've not proposed what their fix for that is, but the line of sight is one of the reasons that intersection is on their radar, so. All right, next we have, this is backhoe replacement. And this number may very well change. We're discussing options. We don't know that we've hit on a final solution yet. This number may change, but we're looking at a backhoe replacement, possibly a used one for the construction crew. Okay. Honestly, I expect that number's low, so just so you guys know. Okay.
Probably closer to 80.
Right. Construction of, sorry.
Would it be cheaper to lease one?
Well, we've kind of talked about that.
We've talked about a hand-me-down.
Right.
And giving streets a better, getting them a newer one, because, we're just.
Right, we're
batting around
exploring all
ideas.
options right
Okay.
now. Yeah. So construction of lean-tos for equipment storage, so this would be at the construction, shop, building, there by the water tower, the Witch's Hat water tower, Bottle Rocket, whatever you wanna call it, behind Casey's. Sidewalks, okay, so this is then getting into the future years, pieces. And then utility bed replacement in the future. So their total, $265,800.
Is that utility bed, the one that's all rusted out and bad,
It is.
so why wait?
Well, part of it is, and we actually had this conversation, that we might put it off just a little bit longer until we have to replace that truck. Because otherwise, we're putting a new utility bed on a truck that we'll probably trade out in a year or two anyway.
Okay.
And so that's Yeah, but we've been having these conversations with,
Functionality wise, it's still, they can still make it work. Your lower bins are rusted out, they're using the upper bins, so.
What year is the truck?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, I'm sorry, and I didn't bring the vehicle spreadsheet with me, so, yeah.
Henry Ford was the original owner.
Okay.
He started it.
Okay, so now we're still in the capital improvement fund, so still funded by capital improvements tax. But now we're moving back into the streets department. So we talked about streets a little bit ago in the special street fund. Now here's the rest of the streets budget, or this capital improvement budget down here under capital improvement tax. So general culvert replacement, so this is a piece of culvert rusts out in someone's, a drive approach or something that we're replacing on city property. Those types of things that come up, just general maintenance, okay? Here's the other half of the loader buyout, the lease buyout, the other half was in special streets fund. A welder for the mechanic shop, I included it in here, I almost kicked it out because of its dollar value, but it should have more than a 5-year lifespan, so. This is replacement of 4th Street planters, for downtown. I don't know that number will cut it, but I do know that the Spring Creek Garden Club has also been looking at this as well and has money set aside.
Okay.
So, I just thought it prudent that we have something set aside as well. So cemetery vehicle, so that starts moving into the next year. So there we go, just those 4 items, 4 streets for capital improvement. Total $61,800. Right. Moving on to police. Okay. So vehicle replacement. For 2 vehicles, this is the $120,000 a year. And chief, that's the vehicles plus all of the equipment with it. We're replacing the equipment as well this year, right?
Yeah, and we actually have a hard number that's significantly lower than that.
Okay, that's good. That's good, okay, so we can maybe update that later on, okay? Always good to hear we have lower numbers. K-9 replacement,
That one's gonna be dropped off as well. The sheriff's department recently acquired a K-9. They have a deputy that's in training for that, and he'll work with us, the officers, as well as the county, so that's an item that can be dropped as well,
so dropped completely as an
Yes.
eliminated?
as a
Okay.
0.
And then reduce vehicle replacement. Okay, alright, and then the storm siren system, do you want to briefly, or do you want me to briefly explain this one?
I can cover it, I know it well enough. So, currently inside the city, we have 9 storm siren or emergency warning siren systems. Each one of those runs at a cost of between $35,000 and $50,000 depending on the siren. We run monthly tests to confirm that they are operating within parameters. And what we're finding is that there are 4 that are typically not functioning properly. It's like they'll work 1 month, or they'll work for half of a cycle. Long story short, they're not meeting their performance parameter. Replacement on these is $40,000 per, and so that's $160,000 on 4 siren systems. So I contacted a distributor with a company that uses Wayland, same name, siren systems, and so what they are is they're a stackable unit with a very specific acoustic design. The bid for that was around $90,000, give or take. The city provides the pole, and they will do the install, the warranty, service, everything after the fact. And so what we can do is we can eliminate 9 storm warning sirens and have that number cut down to 2 at a cost of around $89,000 to $90,000. Through state emergency management, that project qualifies for a grant funding option. And so when we presented that to MRPC, I don't remember the hours, did they say 25. It was 20, it seems like, because the grant application is a very sophisticated grant application. And this is an important project and not one we wanna lose. So we've decided to push forward, or looking at pushing forward to MRPC to actually write the grant for this. The total cost eliminates 9 sirens and has a larger coverage area than what we currently have. It will actually extend into the county, and when I say into the county, outside of the city limits. One storm siren placement would be at the old fairgrounds, approximately. The one, think Orchard and Franklin, the old MacArthur Casey's, up that way, which is currently a flat green field. There are sets of, a storm siren sets there currently. And then the next one would be at US Food Service. And so the company came down and they mapped those locations. They looked specifically at, the height or the altitude, height above sea level for those locations. Both of those locations set in relatively high locations inside the city, and they're in line with one another. And what that does is that allows the sirens to be placed a little further apart and get better coverage. And so they don't just operate as a storm siren, they also operate as a public address service. You can play Christmas music over them, you can make public announcements. There's a whole litany of things that can be done, and they bring us into the 21st century on storm siren notification. You could broadcast all the meeting dates and times. You're good. So,
And Chief, can you go over the fleet management program that you have, just to kind of explain the vehicle replacements that's being proposed?
Sure. What is the page number on that one, Sally?
2 or 3.
2 of 3.
No, you want the detail?
I want the detail page.
25 with the 80.
25.
So I don't have the page numbers. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Your 25, mine 25 is not the same, then.
Yeah, the
Oh.
printouts are different. My apologies.
Okay.
I'm sure.
I've got it. It's gonna be page 30 for me. Okay, so, and it's a part of our ongoing fleet management program. We have a 7-year program that we currently operate off of, with our 7th year being a 0 year. And what that means is that every time we hit a 7-year mark, we purchase 0 vehicles. This has allowed us to consistently cut our vehicle maintenance costs. The number that I have in there is 52%. When I run that currently as a more current number, we're looking at about 60%. And so to put that into perspective, in times past, vehicle maintenance costs, or the vehicle maintenance budget set at around 27,000. And that was to maintain vehicles that were higher mileaged. The way we currently work, we rotate our vehicles out at around 55,000 miles. We still have equity in those vehicles, and it's almost like a 2-for-1 trade. We rotate into and we rotate out to, and those vehicles will rotate out with around 55,000 miles and a considerably higher amount of equity than what we've had in times past. And I would just refer you to previous auctions, capital asset auctions, where vehicles have brought $1,500. Just last year, I believe it was last year, we had one vehicle brought 17,000. And so that's, between the vehicles that sold last year, that pretty much paid for one of the new ones. And that program continues to work, and it's employed nationwide, as they find that the vehicles are more reliable, they're better taken care of. We have a very strict inspection plan for those monthly. Loadout gets checked, the condition of the vehicle gets checked at the start and end of every shift. If there are problems, then those are addressed through a variety of means. It allows us to keep a fleet that is current and well-maintained. The officers take their vehicles home. That is a employee retention effort. Most every department around us that I've found has a mileage range for their take-home vehicles. And as long as you're within that, then you're allowed to operate the vehicle, to take it home. And you're able to respond more quickly that way, because that's a part of the loadout procedure, is to make sure that the vehicles have all the equipment that the officers need for any type of situation that they may encounter. So, I mean, and if you need more specifics on what that might look like, I can address that. But, so for this year, we have it set at 120 was the estimate. Our hard number on that one is setting at 102, so it's an $18,000 reduction from what the estimate was.
The lights and equipment that's on the existing vehicles, those get repurposed to the new vehicle.
That's correct. And so what we've done is, we've eliminated the where we sit now, we've eliminated all of the old, light bar operation systems, radios, and scanners. And we've updated those with trunking units for the radios, new light bar controls. The one unit that we have that is just bulletproof is our radar units. They've had those since early 2000s, like 02, and they are still meeting state inspection and still functioning well within the parameters. And so as a part of that, the way we purchase now is we purchase in an attempt to buy the highest quality internal components that we can, because as the car phases out after 5 years, that technology isn't necessarily outdated. And so what we do is we rotate that technology forward into the next new car, and so we're getting about 10 years out of every individual vehicle loadout. So that purchase will carry us about 10 years, give or take.
You have your heart set on this Dodge Durango?
The reason we chose the Durango is, we've had issues with the big three, meaning GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Currently Ford is in a kind of a retooling situation. Dodge is in the same situation, they're not offering a Charger. We prefer the Chargers over the Durangos, but living where we do with our weather, our assists to the county, to the highway patrol, a split fleet seems to work better for us. All of our vehicles, all of our cars are all-wheel drive, and so they're more capable than just a standard two-wheel drive. But when you do the pricing, if you compare a Dodge Durango to, say, a Chevrolet Tahoe, there's a $20,000 difference on a Tahoe, $17,000 difference on a Ford Explorer. The Ford Explorer being 17,000 higher, the Chevy Durango being 20,000 higher. And so, of the police-rated vehicles that are available, the Dodge Durango came in at the lowest price.
Are you ever involved in the state bidding process?
This is through, there are only two dealerships in the state of Missouri that will still work with state bid pricing. One of those is Bellman Dodge in Troy, and that's the one who comes in with the best bid, and we've used them for the last 4 years. They consistently beat any other dealership that runs with state bid, within state bid parameters. They consistently beat their price, and they do add-ons for us for pretty much free. They'll add a $700 spotlight for a $100 upcharge to us, and they deliver the vehicles.
Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Alright,
I'd like to add one thing to the take-home car piece too, coming from a safety and security manager perspective for schools. You want your officers taking those home if there is a school shooting, because officers will respond an hour away to get to assist in one of those scenarios, and you don't want them rolling up in their personal vehicles. So it's very important.
okay. Alright, so that includes the police department part, economic development, so this one, been on last couple years. Masters Industrial Park signs, and then the voluntary residential demolition program. So both of these, until we get an economic development person hired, are just yeah. I had attempted to try to get the signs done last fall, and I kinda knew when I did it, I remember, I may have told you too, Stacy, I know I talked with Jared about it, cause he was kinda helping me pull parameters together. I didn't get it done last fall, it wasn't gonna happen. Yeah, so, like I said, still in the budget, needing to move forward. IDA was asking about this last night. So IDA is the Industrial Development Authority Board, so yeah. Like I said, there is a tab for each of these as well. The demolition program, we do have people still coming in the office asking about the program. And unfortunately, I just have to tell them, until we can get a person hired for economic development who can head that up, that it's just on hold for now.
For the future, are the people that are currently operating businesses in the industrial park helping to pay for these signs?
Not for the main sign, they would be responsible for the sign that would go at their drive entrance,
Why aren't they contributing to the main sign?
because it's the city industrial park. I mean,
So, I mean,
well,
okay.
I mean, it's something that can be asked, but it's, yeah. Okay. All right, so that concludes the capital improvement fund, funded by capital improvement sales tax. Couple of reductions there. So then moving into utilities section, so this is dealing with the depreciation and replacement fund that I mentioned earlier. So this is electric, and again, we start with leases and debt. So this is gonna be COP, so bond payments on, part of it was the AMI system. I think that's the portion that was in electric, and then leases for equipment, the digger derrick truck, the bucket truck, yeah, those types of equipment. The detail, if you guys want to, I can click over to that, it's up to you all.
Trying to save him some scrolling time.
Oh, gotcha. If we wanna move on, then, okay, something new this year. So, the last few years, we've had, more and more instances of all things, squirrels taking out transformers, lines, reclosure units in the substation, a lot of issues that, with some appropriate tree trimming, a bunch of that could be eliminated. Cause it'll get the tree branches back away from the lines, that kind of thing. So one of the things that has not been done in quite some time, not sure exactly how long, are the feeder lines. So there are 4 main feeder lines that feed electricity to town of Salem, within and out on the outskirts of town. And those feeder lines have not been properly trimmed in quite some time. And so this dollar amount is both for those feeder line trimming, as well as then the regular kinda, someone calls and the tree branches are in their electric line, that kind of thing. And so then we take care of that kind of trimming too. Okay? You wanna add anything to that, Steve?
So we would put this, you could put a tree trimming crew on if you could find a lineman and 2 ground people to work it, but at the cost of well over $100K per year for a 3-man crew and the equipment. If we put it out the contract to bid, we might get some crews that'll do it. It'd be about a $4,000 to $5,000 a week fee for that crew to go out with their own equipment. We're not paying for their benefits, they're insured, and they trim and they do call outs as well, but they work on those feeder lines until we run through the $100K per year, and that would get us, definitely, a good distance. I mean, we're behind.
Right.
We're behind, we're in a bad spot, and it's just gotta get started,
Yeah.
so.
Steve, what'd you say the, rate was for the crew? 4,000 a week? Ballpark?
Of the crews I've talked to, roughly
Okay.
4 to 5.
4
somewhere
to
in there.
5, okay.
And when we put it out for bid, we may get a better deal than that, but, then you got questionable,
You're looking about 20, 30 weeks worth of work?
and that's something I personally, along with Josh Kochetoff with the electric crew, we keep a thumb on it, because we wanna get the best bang for the city buck, so.
So this is something that we've not been able to do appropriately in the past, and it is part of ongoing operations for electric.
Sure.
Because anytime we have one of those major outages, it's an issue, so.
You can go park on MacArthur and just, there's some trees into the lines and just watch the squirrels have a heyday, and we just gotta get after it. And our guys are going problem to problem and fixing things for, citizens, so they're not able to switch their hat to line trimming and as much as we need, so.
And the next two items are also ongoing, purchase of transformers and utility poles. These are needs every year to kind of replenish what they have on hand. They use them for, if a pole breaks, something happens and it's hit by a vehicle, things of that nature, or just whenever they get to the aged point where they need replaced to be safe. That plus new construction where we have to set poles, things of that nature, these come from what we have on hand, unless it's something special. Transformers are the same thing, aged pieces, just general replacement. There's also new construction that happens. If it is something, a larger commercial, then those are special order transformers. So, but this is kind of the stock that we have keep on hand.
How many do you need to have on hand, Steve, for your inventory?
I don't have that number in front of me. I'd have to ask Josh.
Any idea how many you have right now?
Just in that email that I sent to you, I didn't have it memorized.
Okay.
Sorry. So, the example was, we were over at Well 4 a week ago, and I'm sitting there checking out some concrete work that the construction crew did, and we look up and a transformer just cooks off. So you've gotta have them. I mean, it could be one a month, it could be 4 a month that are getting replaced.
That's what I was gonna ask.
And I had Josh Kochedoff do, and I think I sent it to all the aldermen.
I saw it.
Yeah.
There's a substantial stock, but what you've got happening right now is with the storm surges and damage in surrounding cities, if you don't have a good stock, you're gonna risk it.
How many lay there and don't get used or not?
How many
Poles?
lay there?
Yeah, poles. Are there any that ever happens
They
to?
don't lay on the ground.
They lay on the ground?
They're stacked.
Oh, they're
up
stacked?
on the
Yeah.
ground,
Okay.
And then they're treated, so
Okay.
they're not, yeah.
Okay.
And we are part of that, agreement to help other cities as well, so having stock's good.
The way you treat those poles, it takes years if you've ever seen anything, any type of damage or anything to the new poles. I don't know if they use on it, but they treat it pretty good.
So that concludes. the
So you
electric.
could lose as many as 50 transformers in a year at 4 a month?
Feasibly, I mean, if they're burning up, and we do have older infrastructure.
Sure.
I mean, so that one at Well 4 was pretty weathered, and it just cooked off right in front of our eyes, so, no squirrel, no nothing, just
I don't think we're, in that email you said, I don't think we're close to that number.
close to that number of,
Inventory, replacement transformers.
have to pull it up.
I don't think we are, I'm not testing it, I'm just thinking with storms and seasons and,
You mean on hand?
yeah.
Well, but I mean,
And the reason I'm saying it is because I thought Josh talked to us last week with approval because the supply chain is still
Right.
just,
yes,
they may be available and then he came back and gets the approval and then they're not available and we're talking a couple weeks' time.
Right.
So-
And like we were talking, new construction,
Sure.
Four Rivers, new facility's gonna need several, and
Right.
the new airport hangars will need a new setup, and
yeah, but that won't be on us, that'll be Airtime. The airport.
hopefully, but I mean, I think we have to pay for
But
it.
right, various projects that pop up and, are we ready to move on?
I am.
Okay. All right, so that concludes, the electric part for the upcoming budget year at 163.6 thousand. So moving into water. So for this one, another kind of ongoing, just basically maintenance, water line replacement. So this is, a water main breaks somewhere, we've gotta go do repairs, that's what this line item is for. Next we have the fire hydrant rehab and assessment. Do you wanna talk about that some, Steve, what our plan is on that?
So the fire hydrants,
And I'll find the tab while you're talking.
we have a list of roughly 329 fire hydrants across the city, and different states. 70 of them are, listed as leaking, so we have to take a look at all of them. But what we wanna do for the first year is put it out to bid and have a company come in and do maintenance on all of them. Just do a fresh start. Maintenance is popping the cap, oiling it, checking all the valves, and actually doing a check to see if it's leaking, like it's, make sure that it's annotated appropriately. That would be painting all of them as well, so another maintenance piece. They would probably have to do the maintenance on them the first year, come back and paint them in the spring, summer of next year. And we would also, I've talked at length with fire chief and, assistant fire chief. Even if I'm out weed eating around all these things, sometimes at night they're just hard to see.
Mhm.
And, so we would put these reflective rings, we would have the, refurb crew put the reflective rings on them so that the fire department could just whip in, their headlights would catch it, or they could spotlight areas and stuff, so. I just try to make it a better program, hone in on the ones that are worse off, so we can start doing replacements. That would be the first year plan, and then the second year, we would pay the contractor to replace fire hydrants or rebuild ones in place that they can while our crews are working in conjunction, so that we make gains on this, and we don't have a 10-year plan, we have a 5-year plan, and we get back to where it should be. This is, and I don't ever wanna throw anybody under the bus, but this is 20 years, 10 years of neglect, or just not catching it, not getting on it, planning that, we're trying to do, so, and play catch up, so.
So I wanted to note also, these reflective rings, they are also, you can get them color coded, and the color indicates what the pressures and everything are for that hydrant. That way, as the fire department gets there, they know what to expect of it. Yep.
And like I said, my guys, I'm trying to push them to do, they just recently did a fire hydrant replacement over off of, Henderson over there.
Is it Dent and Henderson?
Dent and Henderson, because we're gonna do a resurface on that roadway, so we took care of problems in the roadway, took care of the fire hydrant, and, it also kind of warms them up to what the timeline takes to refresh them, and I'm getting those done, so. We have, 7 in stock. We keep roughly 4 in case of an accident, one gets hit, or one just fails so bad we have to replace it immediately, and then we've replaced one, so we've got 3, I'll keep pushing them to. The goal is to replace, the worst ones or the oldest. We have, I wanna say 1954.
I thought we were at 48 also.
I can't seem to find it. I've
Gotcha.
looked, so.
Somewhere in there.
Right.
It's been there a while.
They ever give a rough idea of what the lifespan of a hydrant is, before we should replace it?
I've never had that
Probably
conversation.
depends on how it's
so
been
that-
maintained.
Right, and, or
Well, if that's the
rebuild.
case, then maybe we want.
Do you have everything you need to maintain them, Steve?
We have rebuild kits, and of the crew that was taught how to rebuild them, I think we have 1 guy. And that one guy is critical in a lot of the water,
Sure.
repairs that are going on, so my fear is you start to rebuild one and you're locked in for, let's say, 4 to 6 hours if it doesn't go well.
Right.
And then you've got a water main or sewer main, and that guy needs to be,
Somewhere else.
so I'm trying to work it as best I can,
Sure.
so.
And that's part of why bringing in this outside,
Yeah.
an outside.
What's the
company.
cost to the city to train someone?
I wasn't here for
Yeah.
that, but I could get you an
Can't
answer.
tell you off the top of my head.
And we did just have our new hire with the water department start, and he had good credentials and, his class A CDL, so he has immediately helped us, water department's gonna get
Okay.
a little better functionality wise.
Okay, so then moving on to other projects in here, so we have the new well and tower. Do you wanna talk about this one, Steve, since we just had a good refresher this
The
afternoon?
new well and tower will be going out over roughly adjacent or across the roadway from the hospital, but closer this way. It's all mapped out. We had a long meeting today talking about it. I have to go out and work on the easement with Mr. Mosier about, getting out there. We bought the property from him. Basically, I think the well would be estimated at 1,000 feet deep. I didn't bring my notes, but,
Right.
the tower, we're looking at 400,000 gallon tower. And we have grant funding for that. If the costs get a little too, high, we may have to downgrade to a 300,000 gallon tower, but we're gonna do what we can to stay at 4, so we're ready for growth. And the growth potential for that amount of water would put us at, it would carry us out to 6,000, maybe 6,500, folks in the city of Salem, so it would carry us for quite some time.
And you
Um,
always, whenever you build a piece of infrastructure like this, you always try to plan for growth. Cause you don't wanna build just to what you have today, so.
Yeah.
And then still be paying for it when you gotta do the next one, so.
What's the size of our other towers?
Oh, what they call it the witch's hat, I think is only, and it's in good shape.
Right.
An old tower, I think it's 150,000 gallon. Out at the industrial park is the size we would be getting.
Okay.
400,000.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
And
know.
same style, a multi-leg.
Same style.
Right.
And I asked them, since it would be seen as you drove into Salem, I said, can we maybe have the Salem logo put on it to catch the current, but that's money too, so we'll have to keep the costs down, so it may end up just saying Salem.
Okay.
Yeah, we did talk today about, when it goes out to bid, that there being options on this project. So one of those would be the 400,000 versus the 300,000 storage tank. Another option could be the painting, just plain block letters like we have on some of the others versus doing the logo. So there could be some other things like that we bid as options, and then when we get the final bids and see where we are, we can kind of pick and choose
Sure.
what bids.
And the engineering behind it's phenomenal. DNR and the engineers have, they've got all the waters mapped out, so they know that that's an ideal spot. It's an ideal spot elevation wise, so that your towers all work together well and for pressure,
Right.
so.
Another piece of this project is, I know I've gotten some comments in the past about the water tower and the Masters Industrial Park, about it needing repainted. And just because that's one of our largest water towers in town, the new tower has to be built in order for the one in the industrial park to be offline, to be painted outside and inside as well.
Right.
So that's another critical piece of
Right, yeah, we got
this project here.
this next one, can be that, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Okay, oh, and on that, so they did say they're expecting to go to bid in the next 60 to 90 days.
Yes, we could see movement on this pretty soon,
Right,
so,
and it will be 3 separate bids,
I believe.
one for the tower construction, one for the well drilling, and one for the other, which will be fencing, building of the well house, laying of the water lines.
Okay.
So 3 separate bids. Okay, lead service line mapping, so this is one kind of carryover. This may adjust down some now. Can we just pay them some?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I haven't paid them until I get
Oh.
reimbursement first.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So this is the lead service line mapping where they're trying to get roughly 10-15% of the town, right, mapped. And that with the October 16th deadline, so that'll carry over into this next year. And that's it for water for this year.
And we've gotten grant funding to cover that expense,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Is that the reason we were putting up, the yellow flags?
All the
And
locates.
Yes, all the line locates.
they're all gone in Magnolia subdivision.
I think the community had enough of those, so yeah,
Was you out there with a
we
racer or
should
something?
probably.
I'm
contact-
selling them to other municipalities that may be going
I'll
through
contact
this.
Jeff, we should.
What if they get mowed over?
Huh?
What if they get mowed over?
Nolan, we're at this point, so-
I've had all my little ladies around there ask me about their yellow flags. I'm like, don't worry about it. But we had to do that, right, Steve? That was mandated that we go out there and go that
Federally
location.
by the EPA mandated.
And there's more to come.
There
because
is,
We'll be checking around the water tiles,
Yeah.
both sides, looking for lead, so it's,
Is there any kind of support for the man hours we put in to do that locate? I mean, those guys were out busting it and there's nothing. No,
It's the part, I guess, it's the city we have to eat to make sure it gets done, so. And it was a lot.
Alright, so $125,000, that's water reserve total.
We're assuming that too.
yeah, I'm sending you one
The
right
other
now.
ones that mowing over.
How many water towers do we have in the industrial apartments?
Just one.
So where's well number 5?
I can't tell you off the top of my head where wells are.
Okay,
Some of the wells have been abandoned.
Right.
well, I thought that was well number 5.
Which one, at the industrial
The
park?
industrial park
Oh.
well is abandoned,
Okay.
it didn't ever feed appropriately,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I knew that, so. Is that one of the ones that you're rehabbing on the outside?
No,
Just the tower.
Okay,
Which we use that for storage.
yes,
okay.
yeah, we
Can't
use the
pump.
tower, not the
Okay,
well.
yeah, right.
DNR sent me a big thick envelope full of all of our wells and our water towers saying that we still don't have adequate storage. We still have inadequate storage for the water that we have, so. They're the ones that recommended also the chain link fences around our wells and stuff like that to secure.
Alright, so moving into wastewater.
Yes.
Okay, you know, and I didn't go over, so yeah, electric, water has the leases and debt also. Again, part of that's the I&I system. Wastewater, we have leases and debt, part of that, sorry, not I&I system, AMI system, sorry, automated metering system. Wastewater has a portion of that as well as the phase 1 upgrades that were done to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Okay, and then into this year's projects, so here we go, I&I, so inflow and infiltration, rehabilitation. So this is something that had kind of fallen off, in previous years, not recent ones, we haven't been doing it in recent ones. In previous years, the city was doing, you know, certain number of feet or whatever of relining sewer lines, and then that kind of stuff each year. So we're trying to get back into that, we've gotta make sure we plug a budget number each year to have that available to try to get that done. That is a contracted, task, it's not something our guys do.
Right.
So what we have in there is both the in situ form, which is lining the actual sewer lines, as well as the manhole lining. So the obic lining, the large
Right.
stuff. Okay, so next, here we have, phase 2A, wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Okay, so the first phase. So you'll see here the city's portion here, this is the city's portion, 20,500. The coming budget year in another 27,000. These are our best guesses on how that might fall on that funding. Those are the city's match for the $5 million ARPA grant for phase 2A. Then we have I&I mapping. So we do have a grant for this one as well, a small grant. This is where they're actually going during our storm events, putting cameras and sensors in the lines to see what the flow is. Trying to determine where our worst leaks are.
Can I real quick?
Sure.
Ionized infiltration and inflow, that's any storm water that's making its way into our sewer system, which causes our daily flow of 1.8 million gallons of sewage to jump to 7 million gallons. It's a problem, so.
That's fine, that EPA loves us.
And now, given from what I understand, cities, I've talked to DNR, cities around Missouri, we're not the worst, we're not the best, we're kind of mid-level on, as far as that stuff goes. We're gonna make gains on it, it's just gonna take a little time, so.
And then the next item there is, vehicle replacement for the wastewater treatment plant. This is replacement of the S10 that they used to use for it. It's been parked for some time now. So this is replacement of that vehicle.
So at that 50,000, are we thinking a new vehicle?
Right, that's
Okay.
what that number is.
I think that's the right way.
Why is, leases and debt, why is it not in the subtotal?
Because it's not a project that we're building or purchasing this year. questions on the wastewater piece.
When will the additional, employee have to be implemented at the wastewater plant?
July 1 is when we'll start advertising, I mean, assuming you guys approve it in the budget, so 2 additional.
That's right, it is
Yes,
2,
2
that's
that are
right.
required.
By EPA or DNR? DNR, okay.
All right, then moving on to the airport fund. So here this is a carryover of Pilot's Lounge improvements. And again, this funding is from the airport fund itself, we're not pulling from other funds for it. These next 2 lines deal with the new T-hangers. So there's the new electric service to the T-hanger, so, you know, working with Intercounty. Our guys, the deal was we were gonna trench it and then they were gonna lay the line to help keep that cost lower.
I'll be working this next week. The T-hanger construction, groundwork phase starts Monday. So we just had a meeting today and, it's gonna be a big push, hoping to be done by 1 September.
Pilots Lounge, are the pilots contributing to that? What, do they contribute to anything out there?
Well, I mean, they pay to lease the hangars,
Okay,
and then they pay to purchase the fuel.
okay, but nothing else.
They do.
No, it's not their property.
Okay.
It's city property. Do what it's-
Their board does have funds, but,
Well, this is their funds, yeah.
we're just, you know, the pilot lounge stuff. So you've got this thing out there and, you know, I think of it like Alaska. Pilots love to fly somewhere and spend $100 on a hamburger. That's what they do. I call it $100 hamburger run. Salem is a prime spot to fly in, jump in a rental car or our provided car and go down to Echo Bluff or go fishing in Montauk. And we're just not set up to make that inviting. So I think this is a great tool to make Salem more, have more appeal for those pilots around the state to fly in. And so the lounge is way outdated. It doesn't have an AC unit, it's just a hot little box that they stop in. You know, so.
So could we ourselves sell $100 hamburgers to make up?
Grill out there, you can grill.
The thought process
I'll grill.
is, and Chief Chase worked on this a lot while he was doing the interim stuff, we could just really make that great. We could have, businesses advertising out there, and I think we could just see a lot more traffic that we don't capture, so.
I know the airport board, they've been working hard to kind of turn that around, this, there for some time, the airport, the lighting on the runway has been out, and that's been fixed, last 2-3 years, and been having issues with the, credit card reader at the fuel pump, and so pilots knew that they couldn't fly to Salem to get fuel, so that's been fully resolved, I understand, and so they're trying to turn it around and trying to get the word out to other pilots in other areas.
New signage, because you've got people with their personal property out there and the public's going out. So there's new signage to only authorized personnel, the gates are locked. We're just working to make that a better product for those people in the public, so.
Because we have had some high priority pupils, I mean, stopping there, if you wanna call them VIP people, cause I've noticed a lot of jet traffic stopping in there.
Yeah, we do have
Yeah.
local businesses who use the airport. I mean, so I have pictures that have been sent to me of FedEx, small planes, delivering packages at our airport, and then the trucks picking them up from there. You know, Independent Stave, so their pilot, one of their pilots, so they have their own pilots and a fleet of their own planes, and they use our airport, and so I actually had, a month ago, had one of their pilots stop in to the admin building and visit with me, and was very glad, very complimentary actually, but very glad to see that, yeah, the pumps were working and we had fuel, and he couldn't use that fuel, he has to use jet fuel, but he was glad to see that it was there and available and that we were making improvements. And so it was a nice visit, but he also was saying, and this is interesting, Independent Stave, and so I guess they are looking at other locations, okay, doing some expansion. And he shared with me that they will not even look at a town that doesn't have an airport.
Right.
So I mean, there are definite economic impacts to having that airport here, they're just not seen every day.
Right.
So, Okay, Doe Run as well uses it to fly folks in and out. Okay, so that's it for this year for the airport, those 3 items. Total of almost 66,000. Alright, so in the grants and bonds, so we're actually getting close to the end, folks, okay? In the grants and bonds section, a lot of these you will have already seen, not all of them, but this is the actual grant or bond funded part, okay, of a project. Now, the first one, you've not seen that yet. This is the scanning of documents so that we can have searchable document databases available of city documents, rather than trying to dig through the files. So we did apply for a grant through the Secretary of State's office this year for $20,000. The additional 7,000 would be our match, and that would include the cost of the software, the Laserfish software, which is cloud-based. Our portion would, as well as some documents. We actually picked 3 different groupings of documents as our first go, assuming the grant is approved. So that includes, like I said, the software itself. It also includes contracting with a company recommended by Laserfish, to come, they will actually come pick up our documents, scan them in, and then bring them back to us. Okay, so it's not our staff trying to scan them all in. Okay, and this is a company who does the confidentiality thing. They understand city documents and local government documents, and they've done this for multiple other communities throughout the state. So that's that. We should know this month, I say this in June, so next month, whether we were approved for that grant or not. So the CMO grant, we already talked about that for the storm sirens. We've talked about the new well and tower, so there's the grant portion of that. We've talked about the lead service line mapping. Waste, okay, so we've not talked about, well, we did talk about 2A. So there's the grant funded portion for 2A of the wastewater plant upgrade. Here's 2B that we've not talked about. So 2B is the one that the public approved the bond last year, a year ago, April 4th, okay? So how that funding breaks down, and the detail is in the actual project sheet. So by approving the bond, that made us eligible for a $2 million grant, through the state revolving fund. So $4.5 million ballpark is what we had for this project that we had to come up with. Because the bond was approved, we're eligible for the $2 million grant. We've pretty much been told we have it. We're in the process right now, what Kelly said today or yesterday, she said it'd be within a week or so. We'll be submitting the application for another $750,000 grant for the sewer plant. So that'll put us at $325,000 of the 4.5. So the remainder is what we'll actually have to bond for, not 4.5 million. Okay, so that cuts it down significantly. Well, 1.75-ish is what we'll actually have to take on debt for, at this point. And so that's this funding here. Okay. We talked about the inflow and infiltration mapping. Okay, these next 2 projects, the Bone Break sewer line replacement or realignment, we have talked about recently. It is a line that obviously needs replaced. Steve, do you want to talk about it? I want to steal your thunder here.
This bone break line drops down into, obviously a low lying area out in the bone break center that is underwater in heavy rains. So basically that's could be a lot of our I&I. So what we wanna do is, well, the engineering firm has it mapped out to move that line up and out, but also keep its, appropriate drop.
Right.
And replace it so that would hopefully rectify a lot of our problems in that, area of town. If we're having any backup flow or anything, it would also drop down that level of high flow when you have a rain event. So it's very important. It's probably our highest priority.
So that way, and I don't have a graphic for the Franklin and Hickory Street. This is another one.
Franklin and Hickory has consistent problems because it's twofold. Well, the main problem is there's old corrugated pipe that runs through there, it's that old, so to have sewage flowing through that's already a problem, and then you
Right.
add in infiltration from tree roots and cave-ins and different things, and then you add in Sonic that's been there since 78, and so even if there's a grease trap, a lot of times somehow grease finds its way into, and it just moves like this plug down the line, and we just kinda have to push it or try to maneuver it till it gets all the way through, and it causes backups in that neighborhood, so. I think part of that line, corrugated line, well, it does, it goes over underneath a mechanic shop over there. You'd be amazed how many sewage lines or even just stormwater lines are run underneath buildings in this town. I don't know how that was a good idea, but, so, the engineering firm has designed it to go out onto our, along the streets and the easements and out instead of, through people's property, so.
So these two items, you'll notice they say COP out here to the side. There was funding still in those COPs that we did the first rounds of wastewater treatment plant upgrades for things like this. Stacy reached out and verified that funding can be used for these projects, and so we can use it to move these two important projects forward this next year. Huh?
I said, oh, that's great.
You doing a little prayer there? Alright, so the airport T-hangers, we've already talked about, this is the grant portion for that. And then the only other thing is the welcome home housing rehab, and then, yeah. And that, do we have those numbers mixed? That should be the revenue.
Seems low.
For what? Okay, we'll look at those numbers again. So that concludes our year one, questions from the board, the committee members? Anything you wanna go back and look at, questions about something you've heard? Is there something you wanna look at out in a future year? I mean,
The only thing I don't know what it is, what's the welcome home thing?
okay.
I don't know what that is.
So the city, it's a grant funded project, okay? It was sponsored by, so the Federal Home Loan Bank, FHLB, Bank of Des Moines. We have two financial institutions in town who are members. There's Riverways Federal Credit Union and Progressive Oak, okay? So we partnered with Riverways at the time. They actually approached us about applying for this grant. So the Federal Home Loan Bank does grants to improve housing. So that can be anywhere from new construction, to rehab. They also have a demolition, but you have to state when you apply, what you're applying for. So for this grant, we applied for rehabilitation of owner-occupied homes. So everyone in the program has to qualify as low income. We actually had a couple of extra carve-outs, so it's all point-based. You get extra points for having all these things. We had a couple of extra carve-outs. We had one for anyone with special needs, so it can be disabilities, and anyone in the household with disabilities, with anyone over the age of 63 was considered special needs. They had quite a few criteria for that. Then the other carve-out that we did was for veterans. Okay. So, unfortunately, we've had to reduce the program. We started out with 25 homes that we were trying to get, and we just could not. We struggled with getting contractors, we struggled with getting homeowners, because the homeowners had to come up with a $5,000 match. So with a $5,000 match, that then they were able to use $20,000 in grant funding to do rehab on their homes. Now how that worked is the city hired the contractor, and then the city paid the contractor, but the homeowner was involved in developing the scope of work. They're a member of the contract, and then they get to sign off as final, say that yes, everything looks good, along with the building inspectors. So, like I said, $20,000 with the grant funding, matched with their $5,000 to get improvements done to the house. So that's what that is. So this is, the last year we'll be wrapping that program up. Anything else?
Do you, so other committees, they'll review their funding for the beginning and ending balance. For the capital improvement fund, do we have, what the proposed beginning balance for the next fiscal year would be? And after all the expenditures, what the ending balance would be?
After all of these expenditures?
Well, for, Fund 301, for the capital.
Okay, but it won't have these expenditures.
Have the capital improvement fund expenditures.
Right.
So on this page, I mean, it shows the revenues we
Okay, so-
expect to come in 25.
Right, so that does have, yeah, for each fund, these are the revenues expected for those funds, so capital improvements, right here, that's the revenue we expect in the capital improvement sales tax fund. Is that what you're asking?
And then if you look at the expenditures, yeah.
Right. And then,
So that one's off a little bit, but we were talking about backhoe, we still gotta tweak, there's some things we gotta tweak in that one.
right, so that's the revenue and expenditures, but then do we have proposed, what the beginning balance?
The
and
closest,
ending-
the closest thing we have to that is this,
Beginning of
this
this
slide
fiscal year.
right here,
Okay.
well, if I can get there from here.
The first tab.
So this, okay, and so here's where the color gets going. So
Which
capital
team you think
improvements
I got out
is,
of that?
it's right here, 301, up, not there. So this is, what is this, Stacy? This is last July,
Pay $15 an hour.
okay,
It's actually increased some, I don't know how much.
right. So this is an estimate of where we expect to
Well,
end
that
this year.
is, as of April 30th was the balance, so.
That's
there's-
the most recent we have,
Then we've got 2 more months and,
right.
Right, I'm not sure what else is coming out of there.
but we'll be able to see that at our next meeting.
Well,
When we-
But
closer,
it won't be below the 895, it's actually more, it's gonna be more than that.
yeah, more than what started.
Yeah.
So that is something, and I've been talking with staff a little bit about this, we've not had like all staff discussions about it. Some of these funds that have been accruing, okay, especially now that we're getting reserve funds funded, and we're getting the depreciation and repair funds funded, if there was a large project that we wanted to do or undertake, that we identified and could get planned out that the community needs. And a prime example would be special streets here, okay? Right there, we're at 678,000, and that's what's been kind of accruing, we're at 490 the year before. I'm sorry, you guys can't see where I'm pointing except where I touched it there. But that's accruing, so if we wanted to, and please don't anyone quote me on this, this is just an example, okay? But if we wanted to say, take Center Street or Roosevelt Street, which are high-traffic streets, and because they've been dug up a lot for water line repairs and things like that, here's my caveat though, and here's what I'm kind of preaching to staff, and they're gonna start getting really sick hearing me talk about it. You know, I made a plug some time back about this, Smart Towns book, but the concept is that we would do it in a 2 or 3 year stage. And so year one, we would go through and make sure all of the underground is replaced and is good. Water lines, sewer lines, anything that's underground, do that first. And then year two, then we would come back in and repave, re-sidewalk, whatever that is. And to try to, you know, to me, that's a perfect use of those kinds of built up funds.
Right.
To do that bigger extra project. And start doing neighborhoods or sections or so many blocks at a time, whatever is a chunk that we can manage, both financially and otherwise, to start improving and upgrading. So that would be an appropriate use of pulling from prior year's funds.
Okay.
There may be some instances, and I know in the parks budget, there is again, where they're recommending we pull from prior year's balance. Okay.
It's like 50,000.
Right. As a normal course of action, I don't recommend we do that regularly, okay? It's not a bad thing to accrue these funds, but you do wanna accrue them with something long-term in mind.
Right.
Okay, and so that's, yeah. Normally, it would take a vote by you guys if during the normal course of the budget year, something happened and we needed to pull from prior year's funds, it would take a board, vote to pull from those funds.
Something that you guys do as we budget every year, is taking 25% of of the expenditures and saving that in reserves.
Right, our current policy, and we need to tweak that policy, we need to make some amendments to it. But our current policy says, certainly for utilities, we've been applying it to general fund also, but for utilities, that the reserve fund should be 25% of the previous year's operating expenditures. Okay, and so in our utilities, we're there in water, right, we're there in water, electric and sewer will get there within this next budget year?
Sewer will go.
Sewer, we will not, okay. But electric will. So that's our reserve. And for those who are kinda new to this, how I explained to the park board, the difference between a reserve account and a DNR, a depreciation and replacement account. Your reserve account is your oh crap account, your acts of God, okay? Something happens, it comes through town, it takes out all of our electric infrastructure. We need to have funds that we can get things back up and going as fast as possible. That's the reserve account. The repair and replacement or depreciation and replacement are for planned things you know, a truck only has X years of expected life. A roof on a building only has X years of expected life. That's the repair and replacement fund.
We're gonna rename the reserve fund to the oh crap fund.
Well, people would know what it was then, so.
Oh, crap.
So, other questions,
The county doesn't have an old.
you don't have an oh crap fund? You need one.
No.
There's a lot of information kind of thrown at us tonight, which we'll still have time to review this on our own. If you do have any questions after tonight, I encourage you to reach out to us or staff on that. And tentatively, we plan on scheduling a joint meeting with the finance committee on Monday, June 10th at 5:30. And just to go over the final numbers, hopefully by then we'll be ready. And at that time, that's when we would vote to make a recommendation for the next fiscal year's budget. So I think most everyone was able to make that. If not, you know, if you're able to join remotely by Zoom, that's always an option as well. So that's, is there any other questions or comments from the board or committee? Well, appreciate everyone's time tonight. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See if you can make use of